White balance is simply this: how warm or how cool your image appears. The second thing that's important to remember is white balance is measured in what's called Kelvin. So in your camera, you'll see 3500 K or 2500 K. This is 3500 Kelvin or 2500 Kelvin. And in your camera settings, the higher that number is, the warmer your image is going to be, and the lower that number is, the cooler your image is going to be. And the key for how to set your white balance as a general rule comes down to this. You want to identify your main light source. So in my instance, I have a main light source here. This is my key light. This key light is set at 5600 Kelvin. So in turn, I've set my camera to 5600 Kelvin. This will allow accurate color rendition, correct skin tone color, and it will help in the post-production process when you're making your color grades. And overall, matching your main key light source color temperature to your camera color temperature will make your videos look way more professional. Now keep in mind, this is a general rule, and as you get more advanced in your filmmaking career and your cinematography, you'll want to start intentionally breaking those rules to get specific looks. But we won't worry about that right now. We'll talk about that in a later video. Well, then you might ask, Hayden, what about auto white balance? I've seen this setting on my camera like many times, and won't that just tell me what white balance to pick? Yes, but it'll vary your footage throughout the clip, and it will make post-production, when you're color grading, a nightmare. So the most important thing to remember is before you shoot your video, decide what your key light is, or if you're using like a window light, understand what daylight temperature is, which is usually 5600 unless it's in the evening or in the morning. In the morning, it'll typically be cooler. In the evening, it'll typically be warmer. And if you take care of these two things and adjust your white balance in your camera and your key light accordingly, your video will look way more professional. So here's an exercise that you can do with your camera. Set your camera up on a tripod, point it in the general direction of a shot that you want, look at the image, and start scrolling through the color temperatures. Go all the way up to like 6500 Kelvin and all the way down to like 3000 Kelvin. I want you to look at how the image changes. And while you're changing the color temperature, there should be a point in time where you see the image and you look up at the scene that you're shooting in front of the camera, and you should look and like, oh, you know what? That image on the LCD screen looks almost exactly like what I'm seeing. And that's how you should, as a beginner, try to govern your color temperature whenever you're trying to shoot a video. So here's a real world scenario where this information might come in handy. So whenever I'm going on a shoot, the first thing I look at whenever I enter a room that I'm going to be shooting the video in is what kind of lighting and what kind of light sources do I have operating in the room. Let's say there's a big window light on one side of the room, and then in the ceiling, there's a bunch of little can lights that are really, really warm bulbs. What I'll do is I'll set up my angle, put my tripod exactly where I want my frame to be. I will decide what light source that I'm going to come in agreement with and motivate. Motivating a light source is essentially using the natural light sources in the space that you're shooting in and motivating them by taking a light, matching the color temperature of that original source. In this case, it's a window, and setting it to exactly what color temperature you know that that light source is. So in this case, I'm motivating with my light a window, and I would know that daylight is 5600 Kelvin almost always. So I would turn my light to 5600 Kelvin. I would set my camera to 5600 Kelvin. And then what I would do is I would acknowledge is that these can lights in the ceiling that in the space that I'm shooting in as well, they're a much different color temperature. So what I would do is I would turn those lights off so I can completely control all of the lighting in my scene. This will allow me to get the most cohesive look across the entire video that I want to shoot. Now, if you don't necessarily have access to turning the lights off in the space that you're shooting, you should still acknowledge all of the things that I've acknowledged with the window light and the color temperature of everything and setting your light accordingly and setting your camera accordingly. But sometimes you can't control all the lighting in your space. And if you take care of the first few things, matching the window lighting to your key light, generally speaking, the mixed lighting in the background, if your key light is strong enough, will look okay in the end. Because most of the time when you're in a space, especially if you're shooting like a wedding or if you're shooting like an event of some other kind, you can't really control the lighting. So you can always just bring lights to accent the lighting that's already there and essentially just work with what you have, which normally works out just fine. White balance is one of those things that it's just so easy to ignore because as a beginner, it seems like such a small part of the video production process. But as somebody who's been in this thing for years, I know that it's super, super crucial in getting the end look and the end result in your video that you ultimately want. So overall, the point is when you're shooting your video, you want to sweat the small stuff so that when you sweat the small stuff when you're shooting the video with your lighting and your camera settings, it will make your life in post-production that much easier. All right, so that is a comprehensive overview of white balance, how to use it, and how I use it in a real world scenario producing videos. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. My name is Hayden, and I am a in-house video producer for an 8-figure national brand here in the USA. And this channel exists to teach you exactly how to do what I do, which is learn how to create beautiful, engaging videos and do it for a living. If that is something that you are interested in, if that is something that you are wanting to build for yourself, take the time to hit that subscribe button and follow for more videos. Thanks again for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one.